All right. Well, welcome to the Robo Show. I'm your host, Chad Robichaux, and I'm here today with Adam Davis. Who Adam is he's a former police officer, author, and speaker. We have a lot in common. Pretty much everything that I try to do for a military community, Adam does the same thing for a law enforcement community. And there's some crossover on both sides. I love our first responders. I try to serve there. He tries to serve over in the military side. So a lot of things that we do similar behind our backgrounds. He's written several books, and just an amazing author. Sold probably close to 100,000 books. One of his main books, Bulletproof Marriage, absolutely incredible book on marriage. Behind the Badge is a daily devotional for law enforcement. Then he partnered up with Lieutenant Colonel Grossman. A lot of people know Lieutenant Colonel Grossman who wrote on killing, and then wrote on combat. And the third book in that series is on spiritual combat, which was co-authored with Adam Davis. And then the most important one right here, I'm holding it up.
Love it.
His book, Behind the Lines, which is a devotional to military. If you look right there, it's not just Adam Davis, it's myself. We wrote this together, and it's just released, and already getting in the hands of lots of military people. I just got a text this morning from I won't say his name, but from a Marine Corps, pretty prominent Marine Corps general who's like, I know it's a daily devotional. I'm supposed to read it one day at a time, but he's like, I'm already halfway through it. That's a compliment.
Overachiever.
Yep. So this is a new book that Adam Davis and I did together, Behind the Lines. It's available everywhere. I'm plugging the book before I even get to let you say anything. But awesome to have you on, brother.
Chad, brother, it's an incredible honor to be on with you. Thank you for having me on and for all that you've done. And you know what? Most importantly, partner with me to reach more people for the kingdom. That's the most important thing that we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to start off with introducing you to the audience. Maybe just get a little of your background. How'd you get into like you said, building the kingdom, reaching people? We say the kingdom for those who aren't Christians out there, building the kingdom of heaven by leading people into a relationship with God through your speaking, through your books. How'd you get into that? I mean, you was a cop. What led you to where you are today?
I think if you look beyond the behind the scenes of everybody that serves in whatever capacity they serve, there's typically some type of pain that prompted them to serve. Most of the people that are labeled helpers in the world today, those that serve because of some type of past pain. And I go back to when I was a little boy at 5, and then being sexually abused by an older male neighbor, and then at 15 in the church. And then growing up as I got to be, spend more time around my dad, a lot of his friends were law enforcement. And I saw these men, and they were good men. I mean, they were great family men. And I was like, I want to be like these guys, And anytime you needed these guys, they were there. And so I grew up and I saw that, and it was more than a calling. It was, I wanted to be like these men. I wanted to model my life after them, but also I wanted to hunt the same people that hurt me. I wanted to find them, and I wanted to make sure they spent the rest of their life in prison, because I don't think anybody should hurt a child ever. And if you're in a position of trust and authority, I don't think you should ever take advantage of people and hurt them. And so it brought me great joy to find these people in our society and put them away for the rest of their life. So, serving in law enforcement was a call, and it was something that I was drawn to naturally. And it was something I thought I was going to do the rest of my life. I mean, honestly, it was something I was going to do the rest of my life. I went into it with the intention of retiring after 25 years, but God had some bigger plans, or some different plans rather, and certainly couldn't be doing today what I'm doing now if I was still there. But I miss it. I miss it every day. Some days are worse than others, but it's law enforcement is near and dear to my heart, as you know.
Yeah, you see, you miss it every day. I don't know, man. I turn on the news and I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a cop right now. And
yeah, it's a hard time.
We both have a hard time, sure, but it's a hard time to be a police officer right now. The media has villainized the police officers. Much of culture in the communities that police officers serve in, or completely ungrateful. Their jobs have
Yeah.
become more dangerous. You got civic leaders like, mayors and city council leaders and Congress people, calling for violence against police officers. I mean, it's a tough time to be police officers. So I'm thankful that people like you are out there, serving them. The organizations like Mighty Oaks, we have our
Absolutely.
I mean, it's never been a time more in history that communities and people need to be there for our law enforcement officers. I wanted to talk about, a lot of times, especially me, people hear me talk about the problems that we have in our military communities, veteran suicide, PTSD, forces, those types of things. But those things are not very different in the law enforcement community. And I know you have a finger in the pulse of that. Can you share some of those numbers, some of those statistics, some of those hardships that our law enforcement face?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, it hadn't been too long ago. There was an officer, matter of fact, at the time of this interview, it was about a week or so ago, a guy that I used to work with on the streets was pulling a car over on a high-risk traffic stop, and the suspect pulled out his firearm, fired around, injuring the officer. They returned fire and eliminated the threat of any further fire. He had served, overseas, and I think about the men, because there's a lot of crossover between military and law enforcement. A lot of the guys that you see serving your communities and law enforcement have served in the military. Not everybody, but a lot of them. And so when you talk about, line of duty deaths, to this point, right now, as of this date, there have been 103 line of duty deaths, and that's according to odmp.org, officerdownmemorialpage.org. 103, 55 of those are from COVID. All right. 17 of those 103 are by gunfire. Now, the number that I'm about to give you is going to blow your socks off. 51 law enforcement suicides since January 1st, 2021. 51. 35 of those 51 military veterans serving their communities. There is an incredible sense of overwhelm, but there's also sort of, you hear people talk a lot about this stigma. If I go get help, or, if I say something that I feel this, or, whatever, man, let me tell you something. If by chance you're listening to this podcast, it's not a coincidence. If you're listening to this and this is something that's crossed your mind, one of the best things I ever did was find somebody that could help me. And, I've talked to pastors, and I've talked to friends. I've talked to people like Chad and others about stuff that I've gone through and that I deal with personally. But getting that help and working through it, there is hope, and there is a better way. But when you think about 17 law enforcement officers have been shot and killed since January the 1st, and 51 have taken their own life.
Right.
That should sound an alarm somewhere. That should sound an alarm. And the fact that these men and women get up day after day, night after night, whatever their shift is, and they put their uniform on, they put their duty belt on, they put their badge on, and they go to work knowing that they're going to be hated for what they do. That's a different kind of love, man. That's a different kind of love. They're not going out trying to find somebody to hurt. They're driven by love. They may not say it, they may not look like it, but that's what drives that type of service. And so I think we have a duty, we have an obligation, if we're going to have a future of law enforcement in this country, to do something to spark a movement that does something that creates some type of awareness and action, because awareness alone sucks, right? I can be aware that I'm a prick, but if I don't have a strategy to fix my awareness, then it's useless. We're aware all day long, but nobody's doing anything about it.
Yeah.
So I got the numbers on the law enforcement suicides from an organization called Blue Help. They do a great job of keeping up with that information. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't know about it. You wouldn't know about it. So certainly something we need to talk about.
Yeah, like you said, it's tragic to be able to bring up a problem like that, but there has to be a solution to it. And I think you nailed it. Someone that would serve as a police officer is not serving because they're looking for opportunity to go out and be a bully. There's always bad apples out there.
Right. Yeah.
Find those, but by a large majority, the people who serve, the men and women who serve in uniform, who serve our communities, they're serving out of love for the community to help people that they feel maybe can't help themselves. And, they want to be able to help. They want to be able to make the world a better place. And that's why they serve. And these are the people that run into burning buildings. These are the people that, that will run into a house where there's gunfire to help a stranger that never met before. And oftentimes someone that likely probably hates them.
Yep.
They're going to help them anyway. And, if we want to see this country, in particular our inner cities, because that's where, the biggest impact, negative impact of this war on the police is hurting. It's not hurting the police as much as hurting the communities.
That's exactly right.
I mean, if we want to see this turn around, then our communities, as a country and as communities, need to come together and show our love and support for the police. So this episode of the Robo Show is brought to you by iron-neck.com. Iron Neck is the world's #1 neck strengthening device. You guys don't know, in 2006, I was in Afghanistan and broke my neck. And if you want to read about that story, a crazy story of how I broke my neck, it's in my book, And Unfair Advantage. You can go and check it out. But coming back from Afghanistan, after that's when I had all my big MMA fights and my neck, and the VA wanted to do fusion, and I refused to do fusion, and I just opted to just strengthen my neck, keep my neck strong. So since, all these years fighting through all my fights in MMA and jiu-jitsu, I've always been very important that I keep the muscles of my neck strong, because the bones in my neck are broken off, and so I don't have that stability. And so neck strengthening has always been a very important thing to me. I've always just improvised ways to do it, using body weight, using different kind of improvised things that I'd make up. But now I don't have to do that anymore, because I have an Iron Neck device, which helps me to not only strengthen my neck, but do it in a safe way. The way the device works is it's on a rotator, so as you move your neck, the point of where the tension is actually moves around your head, and so super effective and safe way to strengthen your neck. And whether you have a neck injury or not, I think in sports or just in life, it's really important to have a good, strong neck. If your neck's strong, your hips are strong, your body's going to be strong. And so check it out, iron-neck.com. If you enter promo code Robichaux, Robichaux, my last name, you'll get 10% off. And I'm really doing this because I love it myself, and I want everybody out there, especially those with bad necks, to be able to take care of themselves. And so I really thought it was a great product to push out and partner with. And these guys are pretty awesome. They're a Texas-based company. Iron-neck.com.
I think that's a great point. But I also think that there's a predominantly silent part of our society in the United States that are good people. You hear a lot about the hate for law enforcement. In fact, media outlets blatantly put up misleading headlines to mislead people, to confuse them, to deceive them about what happens, and they don't tell you all the facts. What you don't hear is that probably 3/4 of Americans support cops.
Yeah,
I don't have the stat on that right now, but that is based on research. Roughly 77% of Americans support law enforcement. You don't hear about that. But what needs to happen is that these same 77% that you never hear from, they need to be rattling the cages of elected politicians in D.C. and in their states, wherever they are, their communities, and they need to rattle the cages and get loud so that these people get behind law enforcement to shut organizations like BLM down.
I agree. I definitely agree. I think the majority of Americans love and support our police officers, even the ones that don't like our police officers. Yeah, would recognize that something like defunding the police is insane.
It's asinine at best.
It doesn't even take someone that likes police officers to recognize. That's you just think logically for a second. Especially, it's easy to say that when you're sitting in the halls of Congress and you got a security team and stuff like that. But when you're like in the inner city America, if you're like a single black mom or somebody who would be the recipient of this, you don't necessarily have to like the police to realize if the police aren't there for me when I call 911, then the world's a more dangerous.
That's a bad day. That's going to be a bad day.
So,
But yeah, the only people standing between you sitting in your home peacefully right now and violent, evil human beings that want nothing more than to take what you've got, including your life and the life of those you love, are cops.
right.
That's it. And good men and women who know how to operate a firearm and are willing to use it to defend others and themselves. That's it.
Now, I hate being a devil's advocate, especially on this topic. But I'll say it because, I want to look at the people that would be on the other side of this argument. And I usually can't be on the other side of any of this argument. But I believe this exists already. They say that if there are good cops out there, then the good cops need to call out the bad cops. I think that already happened.
I agree. Yeah, they do. They do. And I'll tell you what, one of the first time
most cops that
they do it.
Years in law enforcement, you spent a lot of years in law enforcement. If you see a guy that's a turd, he's not very liked. He's not liked at all. Most cops don't like bullies. And when they see it happening, that guy's kind of going upstream. He's swimming upstream every day. And eventually he's going to be either called out by his peers, he's going to get rolled up by internal affairs, or he's going to get exposed through doing something stupid. And it doesn't mean that stuff doesn't happen. But like I said, I'm playing the devil's advocate here and saying that stuff does happen. So
yeah.
Are the good police policing that? I say yes.
I think that you see more of police officers policing themselves now than you have in a long time. And I don't know that it's necessarily been an issue where they haven't been. There's just more eyes and ears on the matter now than there's ever been. And everybody knows that at any given moment you're engaging with the public, you are being documented, you're being recorded, video, audio, everything's being recorded. And you've got guys that are holding, men and women, that are holding each other accountable to a higher level now. But again, they go through a stringent process. I mean, you can't just walk in the door, fill out a piece of paper, and start work as a cop in most places that I'm aware of. It's a several month-long process. But, sometimes you have somebody slips through the crack that's got some underlying issues that's not addressed, and it comes out. It will come out. But yeah, we need more of. I don't think it's more training. I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's more along the lines of, if you see somebody that's wearing the uniform and badge that you wear doing something stupid, that's going to dishonor the profession that you do, call them out, pull them aside, talk to them, do something, stop it, because what's going to happen is it's going to cause you more heartache than if you hold it in and you just kind of brush it under the rug. Yeah,
I don't know. I might disagree with you on the training. I mean, it gets depends what kind of training you're talking about. I don't think they need more training on behavior and discrimination and that kind of stuff. I don't think they need more training on that, because I think those are not prevalent issue. I don't think they're prevalent issue. I don't think those are widespread systemic issues. But I think they need more. I think they need more training on is tactical training. I think a lot of police officers get minimal tactical training. Go out, you get some, 120-pound guy like I was, or some, female, and they get once, maybe 8 hours in the police academy of physical training, and then once a year they get certified in their physical, hand-to-hand stuff, and they get out there to try some of this stuff, and because they don't train every day, it doesn't work, and so now they're having a flashlight 50 times because they're scared. And so I think when it talks about training, I think a lot of the use of force issues could be brought down when you have good, proper, hands-on training. When police officers are more physically fit, when they get on the ground and wrestle around, grapple with people in tough training scenarios, I think it could be a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think
I won't defend every police officer in everything. I mean, there was, forgive me if I'm being presumptuous, but from seeing the video, but that lady shots a guy the other day thinking it was a taser. That's a training issue. I mean, I don't think she was malicious or evil, but
She went code black. Like her mindset was gone. Like she was no longer there.
Yeah, she shot a guy and she's like thought she was tasing him. That's a lack.
That's bad. That's bad.
It's not racist.
You know,
Racist. It wasn't malicious.
it was bad. It's terrible. It's horrible the way it happened. You know, and there's going to be some consequences that come from that. I would think.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, man, our department where I come from, that they do training several times a year, not just tactics, but you know, I don't know how much ground fighting training they do here, but I know that that's becoming more of an issue. Is how can we prepare them? And when I go across the country and I train law enforcement agencies on the Sheepdog Unconquered program, and one of the things I'm talking about is staying fresh on your training. You don't want to be the guy like I was at over 300 pounds. Dude, I couldn't have ran to the mailbox, much less a foot pursuit. And so when you get in a situation where you haven't taken care of yourself physically, mentally, and you haven't prepared yourself in these situations where real life scenarios, when the real thing hits, when the moment of truth hits, you've got very little margin for error there. And so when you have that training and it's muscle memory and you've prepared your mind so that you can breathe and you can focus and you know what to do and you know which tool to go to instead of grabbing the wrong one and making a fatal mistake like that, I mean, it changes everything. So taking care of your mind, taking care of your body, taking care of your soul, if you're going to be on the front lines, those are absolutely critical.
And not only for yourself, but for your partner, but you've made
absolutely yes
both to protect and defend the people in the community. And if you're not taking care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to adequately do your job, protect and defend the community.
You're cheating everybody you serve.
Yeah. So so kind of digress into readiness, but I want to stay on the topic of how can we help? What are some things we could do to help these police officers that are serving and have a heart to serve, that are struggling right now?
Yeah, when you see, I'm going to go to something very practical. When you see the big hand of big government doing a lot of overreach, and they're creating policies that are going to affect your community in a very negative way, but it seems real cool and popular to the liberal left. Anything that affects your Second Amendment rights, your law enforcement agencies, we're putting handcuffs on them. I don't think we're too far off, probably 5 years from seeing politicians go after disarming law enforcement officers. I think that's something that you're going to see. And I think that if we don't, as the citizens who rightfully should have a voice in this country once again, we should be rattling the cages of those who are elected. We should be blowing up their email, not blowing up, calling them and emailing them and letting them hear us. We need to let them know that we disagree with what they're doing. Number two is support programs like Mighty Oaks, man. Mighty Oaks is great. I do a lot of work with Reboot Recovery, and Evan and Jenny and the team over at Reboot is supporting these programs, because let me tell you something. If you don't support the good guys and the people that are doing good, effective work, you're going to see a 51 suicides in 2021 by we're end of April almost. That's going to be nothing. That's going to be 1% compared to what you're going to see over the next several years. So fighting for protecting law enforcement officers when it comes to politics and legislation, supporting the programs that are being effective and they're diligent and they're good, solid programs. They're not taking the money and buying, multi-million-dollar houses, but, out there saying they're raising money for programs. They're out there actually doing the work. And of course, attend some of the trainings that we put on. I think that's important. And then encourage law enforcement when you encounter them. Encourage military when you see them. I know that at the moment when you say thank you, and you may have different feelings on this. When somebody says thank you, to this day, there's a lady that I'll run into at church. I pulled her out of a vehicle. She had just been hit by a semi. I reached over and I was there for her. She was about to burst into flames. Usually you don't move them. She will still to this day walk up and give me a hug and say thank you. Thank you. That thank you means a lot to me because she's still here. And people, when they say thank you, they may have different reasons behind it. But look at somebody that's putting on a uniform today. I don't care what color the uniform is. You tell them thank you, and you tell them how much you appreciate it. And lastly, and this isn't popular, okay, but pray, because this country was built on faith. And if you're too shy and you're ashamed of it, that's going to go away, and that's going to become a crime. So if you love your cops, if you love your military, pray for them today. It doesn't take a lot to do it.
No, definitely doesn't. And I know they appreciate it. Yeah, but speaking of saying thank you and appreciating them, last night I got a ticket. I hadn't got a ticket in like 20 years. And I remember
no.
I was coming back from seeing my son, and you go through Texas, and there's all these little towns, and so the speed goes from like 75 to like 55 and 45, like that. And you don't even notice it.
Yeah.
It's back and forth like a yo-yo, and I had my speed. I had my cruise control set at 80, 5 over, and I'm like cruising, and I got pulled over, and I'm like, oh man. And this lady comes up, and she didn't even no chance for a conversation. I'm like, and my mind's like, I want to tell her, like, isn't there some crime you should be out there fighting? I'm a good driver. I'm an old person driver. I'm not I definitely I don't feel like I'm not a speeder. And I was like, man. But instead,
take it.
I said, hey, thank you for your service, and be safe out there. I didn't want to tell her that, but
well, you didn't want to get a ticket, but
no. After she gave me a ticket, I thanked her for her service, and I told her to be safe, and because I appreciate what she's out there doing, even though a ticket.
Yes, well, writing tickets in the beginning was one of the favorite parts of what I did, and then I grew up as a cop, and I was like, man, these tickets can get expensive for folks, and so I went after the people that were actually doing some bad things. But now sometimes writing a ticket, stopping somebody for that, can lead you to a much more interesting encounter. So you never know. But yes, I hate you got a ticket, but what a good response.
Yeah. I paid more attention to the signs after that, so it did its purpose.
Yeah, that's right. It works.
Yeah, but I mean, just to encourage everybody out there, like, man, there's never been a time that I could think of in our country where being a cop wasn't a popular thing, when it was a hard thing, when it was something that, again, we started off this conversation. I don't know if I'd want to do it right now.
I wouldn't want my kids to do it.
I mean, people are, they have to worry about getting assassinated. Like, you sitting down drinking a cup of coffee and somebody walks up to your window of your car and shoots you, or makes a call. You call, you thinking you're going to help somebody, and it's an ambush. Or you do your job and you get sued, or you get charged for a crime when you're trying to do your job, and your mayor or your city council member
has no spine. Yeah.
The district attorney is trying to make an example of you, and for political purposes. It just not the time. I mean, you were talking about like states like Colorado that are taking away things like qualified immunity, which means the department's not going to back you, and you're personally liable for doing your job. Imagine if they, doctors couldn't get insured.
Oh, man.
I mean, how could you want to be a police officer right now? So because of all that, I'm not saying that to say I wouldn't want to be a police officer. That's not the point. I'm saying all that to say we should appreciate these men and women who are serving right now more now than ever, because despite all those things, they're still out there serving, and we still need to back them up, even though they were pulling us over and writing tickets when we shouldn't be getting.
Hey, listen. If you are a citizen in Colorado, and I think they just did it in Maryland also, you need to be sending some letters and making some phone calls. I know that they took away qualified immunity and they signed those bills, but just as fast they signed them, if enough people will make that wheel squeak a little bit and squeak loud, they can sign a piece of paper that'll fix it. So make some noise, because it's time for the good voices, the righteous voices of Americans, of the good team, not evil but good, to be heard if we're going to save a nation.
That's right. By and large, men and women in law enforcement are serving. You said it best. They're serving out of love, not because they're looking for opportunities to go out there and be bullies.
That's right.
They're there with the right intent and reasons, and they need us to be behind them. And we need, politics aside, any rational person recognize we need police in the community. I mean, our nation is a nation of laws. We need police, and they have to be here. Does some things need to change? Of course, things could always get better. But overall, our men and women in uniform need our support. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your voice, for writing these books, for getting out there speaking, for being an advocate for police officers. How could some of the listeners follow some of the stuff you're doing?
Facebook, you can visit my page, The Official Adam Davis. You can visit the website, theadamdavis.com. And, you can always just look me up online, man. I'd love to hear from you. Love to hear that you listen to the show. Love to hear from you. And be sure to check out Behind the Lines. Behind the Lines is releasing now. It's already shipping out. I think Amazon orders were shipping about 2 weeks early. So if you haven't ordered yours, listen, if you never served, order 5 copies, put it in your car. When you see somebody in uniform, give it to them. The same thing with Behind the Badge. That's what people do in churches around the country and just citizens. They'll buy copies and give it away to when they see an officer somewhere. So, I encourage you to check out the books. We work hard on them. We put a lot of time into them. They're great resources, but I look forward to hearing from you. And let me know if there's anything I can do to help you guys.
Outstanding, man. Good having you on.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate you, brother.
God bless, guys.